Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sailors in Suits, the show with good looks and even better sailors. Today, joining us all the way from Denmark, we've got my former coach, the man, Søren. Søren, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to this.
Of course. Yeah, I haven't seen you. It had been a long time, and then I saw you in Italy. What was that, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
know. It's been a while.
yeah. So, Søren, how are things going over there in Denmark, especially with the coronavirus? How's the country handling it? What kind of restrictions do you guys have placed on you?
Well, the thing is that here in Denmark, they rapidly shut the country down once they got the virus spread from Austria and from the northern part of Italy. A lot of Danish skiers brought it back early, but it was also brought to their attention early. So they took the consequences and basically shut the country down a few weeks earlier than when you guys started it. And that also means that there's very, very few with the virus now, and they are day by day opening up larger and larger bits of the country. So the kids are back in school, the shopping centers are open again, the restaurants and cafes and stuff are opening up on Monday. So it's in pretty decent shape.
That's good to hear. Yeah, we're definitely not there yet here in the States and in Illinois, but hopefully soon. So you've been back to work. You've been working, plugging away.
Yeah, I've been working my way through it.
Nice.
I'm fortunate that I can do a lot of my work from home because it's negotiating and selling our corporate stuff. But the bad thing is, of course, that a lot of those corporate events that we should have facilitated in March, and April, and May have all been postponed. They haven't been cancelled, but they are pushed till later on in the year. So of course it's still good for the business, but on the other hand, we're lacking a lot of sales that should have been taking place in the early part of the summer because people are kind of sitting on their hands right now, not quite sure when everything will be back to normal and when we can do corporate stuff again. But hopefully it's going forward, and I think that starting on Monday, with the shops all being open and the restaurants being open, and we're looking into a big opening of the country in the beginning of June. Right now, we can't be more than 10 persons together, and as it is right now, from June 8th, they'll bump that up to 50, and that makes a huge difference on our business and for the majority of the country as well. So
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. The events changes a lot of things. So in each country as a whole, there's going to be less national events, and everyone's going to be kind of like looking more to their organization to host events and keep it small. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So Soren, I was lucky enough to meet you as an Opti coach when you were in the United States working with Team Most, the Midwest Opti team. Big shout out to all the families from Team Most. I was lucky. I was kind of on the tail end of all those rock stars on Team Most. Can you kind of walk us through? My point is, you have worked all over the place. You've done a lot of cool stuff. Can you bring us through kind of your sailing life, so to speak, from when you started all the way up until now, hitting a couple defining moments along the way?
yeah, sure. Well, I grew up sailing at a relatively small place here in Denmark, but I thought that sailing and sailing competitively was really interesting. So I moved on to the bigger yacht club on the ocean, and I became quite good at a young age. But I was getting too big for the Opti quite early as well, which means that I started coaching at the same time as I was sailing laser and the Europe dinghy and other single hand boats. And then at a quite young age, I became a Danish national team coach and started working with our best optimist sailors here in Denmark. And that brought me on to a lot of the international events, and I met one of the guys that you also know, Scott Norman. He was working with the US Optimist team at that point, and I was working with the Danish, and we shared coach boats at a number of the bigger events back in the days. And at that time, Scott was sailing director at Lauderdale Yacht Club, and I was at the Danish Naval Academy. And as I was finishing the Danish Naval Academy, Scott gave me a phone call and told me that he was just being offered another job or a new job at Opti College, and that let his own job at Lauderdale Yacht Club open. So I got in contact with the Lauderdale Yacht Club and got the job as the sailing director there. And I was very pleased with that. And one of the families that I worked with in Lauderdale Yacht Club was the Hagers that came out or still comes out of the Midwest. And they brought me to the Midwest, and we had an idea of starting a sailing team up there. And at that point, the Hagers were very good sailors and were probably also a little bit ahead of the majority of the sailors in the Midwest. And they brought a different perspective to training and to coaching and to traveling and all that. But a large handful of sailors from, in particular, Beulah and also the small lakes around, they looked into this and they thought that it was really interesting and a cool way of dressing things. So we started the MOST team. So that was the Midwest Optimist Sailing Team. We had it was actually a fun story. It was probably before you got involved, but we wanted to call it FART, but the moms wouldn't allow us.
What was that farm area?
The farm area racing team.
Yes. Maybe, well, now that gives us a chance to start another one of these.
Yeah.
But well, I'll interrupt you real quick. I think it'd be really cool to get a list of all the accolades of all the kids that you coached on that team. Because, I mean, we're talking a couple of Olympians. We're talking a ton of college All-Americans. So, but carry on with the development of that team. I also didn't realize that Scott Norman brought you to that first position in the States. So that's a really small world. Big shout out to Scott, because he also linked us up together in Italy a couple of summers ago or springs ago when we saw each other last.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, it's a small world.
Sure is.
But that was what led me to the Midwest. And you're right. It was very successful during a number of years. And I would say that it was actually the most successful sailing team in the country for a number of years. And then it kind of faded out with the Hagers not being involved anymore. And there weren't really a new family to step up and drive it. And also I was back in Denmark after the Hagers got out of the Optimist. And that meant that I was going back and forth for a number of years afterwards, coaching all the summers and also all the major events during the year. But things are happening, and I got a family, and all of a sudden it became a little harder to travel back and forth.
I remember when we were in the south of France at that clinic, that Opti clinic, and you were there with us, and you were sleeping in your big Sprinter van. I don't know if you could pull that off anymore, that kind of lifestyle.
Well, I still can, but I'm not doing it as often anymore. Right. I still love to coach, but the good thing is now that I'm doing the coaching because I like to coach. I'm not doing the coaching because I have to, because it's not a primary income. But I still love to do it, and that's why I'm still holding on to that clinic every year at Lake Garda as well, because it's just such a fun time to see all the old buddies. And well, to be honest, there's still a handful of them around, and in particular in the States, they're still doing it full time. But around the world, I still do have some of my old pals that are kind of on the same page as I am, that they're doing some coaching because they like to do it. and not because they have to.
Right.
But
That's a good way
I
to
still
do it.
very much, I very much enjoy doing it once in a while.
Yeah. So
So.
after what was after the high level optimist coaching? Obviously you still do a bunch of coaching because you like to, and when they happen to be located in Riva del Garda, you know, it makes it easier. But
Yeah.
so what was the next thing after that?
Well, I got involved with the Irish Olympic sailing team, the Danish Olympic sailing team, and also the US actually was coaching some lasers at a point. Um, I gave up working with the Irish probably 2 years ago, but it's just because that whenever it's prime time for all the coaching, it's also prime time to do my primary job.
Right.
Which is to run a business in or within sailing. And being in Denmark with our seasons being relatively short for sailing, I just need to be here
Yeah.
whenever it's time for it.
I know how that goes being in Chicago. It's like when I can be working and coaching during our season is when I'm really busy. So you never have time to go racing. It's a tough balance.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna jump into rapid fire questions with you. So just brief answers. Don't think too much. The first one we always start with is: are you a cat person or a dog person?
Neither, but I do have a dog.
So you don't like your dog? What's up with that?
Well, it's kind of a family dog. It's not really my dog.
You're being a good sport about it. I like that. So next, what do you miss the most about the Midwest?
I'll have to say that what I miss the most about the Midwest is the temperature in the summers. I really enjoy the temperatures and the lack of humidity and the blue sky and the life around the lakes. I really appreciated that once I was there.
Yeah, it's a good lifestyle, especially up in the inland lakes. They do it really well up there. It's not a summer day today.
Remember that?
Oh yeah. So what's your best memory coaching in the States? Was it in the Midwest? Was it at a different regatta in the country?
Well, I have to bring up some of those highlights that we had with sailors from most because we had 1 year where we brought 3 out of 5 on the world team and another 3 on the European team, and that was just being dominant. So that have to be some of the biggest moments. But also introducing a European way of traveling to the US families was a great joy. And the way we did it was that Mr. Hager, he had a very large vehicle, and we can fill it up with sailors and bring the sailors to all the regattas without having to bring all the parents. So
Right.
not that there were anything wrong with the parents, but this way we made it a lot more affordable for all the families to join in and be a part of this team because they didn't have to bring all the parents to each one of the events. So, I mean, I've been driving the excursion with the 8 kids, 7 kids, all the way up to Canada, to Kingston, without having any parents aboard. And the kids, the sailors at that time, they had a blast.
Oh yeah, we loved that. You know.
Yeah.
So that was actually a question I was going to ask. What are some of the biggest differences between youth sailing over in Europe and then youth sailing over in America? So you touched on the travel, but what else do you see?
Well, it was certainly a big change for the U.S. families to send their kids off with a foreign coach. Yeah. But the good thing was that I was with these sailors for so many years that I wasn't really seen as a coach. I was more seen as a part of the family or as an older brother. Or so the families, they trusted me, and so did the sailors. So it was actually really, really nice. And we got to know each other so well that it was also beneficial in between the races on the race course. Because I knew exactly where they were, what to say, and how to treat them, and what to do. And so the bonding was really good, and that's some of the things that I was used to do in Europe, but haven't really been happening in the States. So
Yeah, that
that was a big achievement, and also for the families because there was a totally different way of doing things that they were used to.
yeah. And once I kind of rolled into Most, you had already kind of established that way of things. And so I just kind
Yeah.
of hopped right in and it was really easy. That being said, my mom is one of your biggest fans and she wanted me to give you a big hello. I think she was more excited that we were doing this than either of us.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah,
Say hi.
Soren, what's that?
No, please
Yeah,
bring her all the welcome and say hi to her.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, briefly describe your perfect day out on the water. What kind of watercraft are you on? Where are you? What are you doing? Who's with you?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. Briefly describe your perfect day out on the water. Are you out on a motorboat? Are you sailing? What's kind of your just perfect chill day out on the sea?
Now or back in the days when I was in the States?
Let's say now.
All right.
Just
I do
nowadays.
have, yeah, I do have a 45-foot sailing boat that I use just for cruising with the family. And we really enjoy taking it out. We got 3 kids, and the oldest is 18 now, and the youngest is 10. And they are not racers, but they love being on the boat. So being out in good conditions with them or bringing some of their friends along is a very very nice day for me. Also, the boat is big enough so that we can go cruising for 1 or 2 weeks in the summer, and they can have their friends jump on and off as they wish. So that's really family vacation on our end, and that's how we really enjoy it.
That's a really good
I
answer.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. That's kind of like a life goal, and I bet the cruising up there is amazing.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And I've been so fortunate that during the last many years, a lot of these sailors that I used to coach in the Midwest when they were in Opti, they moved on to the Olympic circuit. And they've been coming to Denmark multiple times. And latest, a couple of years ago, when the big worlds were taking place in Aarhus, a lot of those sailors that were campaigning came to my country, and all of a sudden I was the one that could help them out and help them
Right.
sort out logistics and bring cars back and forth and house them and lend them a coach boat, and it was great to give back actually.
Yeah.
So
That's a theme with you, Soren. So my final quick rapid fire question is what's kind of one piece of advice that you would give an entry level coach? So let's say a recent college graduate who is thinking about becoming a coach and wants to become like a higher level youth one design coach. What would your advice be? And that's obviously a huge question, but just the first thing that you think of that a kid, 21 years old, not sure
yeah,
what they're doing.
yeah. Well, I think that what what kind of made the difference for me was that when I came to the point where I did it for myself rather than for the paycheck. Also, when I came to the point where I could do it for myself because I wanted to do it, I did not have to agree or disagree with what everybody was saying or thinking. They need to take a coach for the person that the coach is. You can't kind of try to put something over the shoulders of a person. So for me, it was basically being at a point where I could make my own decisions, take it or leave it. Basically, it sounds harsh, and I really don't mean it that way.
Yeah.
But when you're at a stage where you can make your own decisions and people like you for the decisions that you're making, rather than the decisions that a random parent are pushing you towards. Because there is families and parents that are pushing you, and in particular when you're 20 or 21. So the older you get, the easier it is to kind of protect yourself and not being pushed around. So the earlier you can come to that stage, the better a coach you will be and the more you'll achieve.
I couldn't
I don't know
agree
if that
more with
answers
that
the
answer.
question.
No, that you
I'm sorry?
answered you answered the question for sure. I think that was really good. I'm not going to say anything else and tarnish it. I think every young coach should listen to what you said. That makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
I'm becoming a little bit rusty. As you know, English isn't my first language. It used to be better, but I'll pick it up as we go.
Hey, I'm not speaking your language, Soren, so no worries.
No, that's okay.
So everybody, the reason that I really wanted to bring Soren on was to talk about GoSail Denmark, which was a company that he started, and we're going to dive into that, Soren. Just can you kick us off with some basic information? What is it? What do you do? When did you start it? Where are you? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. When I came back from the States, I started sailing match race. We had our own match race team, and we were actually ranked top 10 in the world for 3 or 4 years. So we participated in a lot of these match race events. But it was also at a stage where I came back from the stage. I took the education as a school teacher, knowing that I wasn't going to work as a school teacher, but I enjoyed the education and I liked teaching.
Right.
So I found a business associate, and he was 15 years, or he is 15 years older than I am. And this is 17, 18 years ago now. And we started a business where we wanted to do corporate sailing. So we wanted to teach people how to communicate using a fleet of equal match race boats. And we started out with 4 boats, bought another 2, then we had 6, and then we started buying another fleet and ended up with 17 boats at a company called Match Racing Denmark. But that company was owned by a lot of different shareholders, and they couldn't quite agree. So my business associate and me, we started our own company 3 years ago under the name GoSail. And basically, it's the same story. We're still teaching people how to communicate, and we have bought a new fleet of boats. They're called Blue 26. They're actually produced in Holland, but made specifically for the deep lakes in Austria and Switzerland. But it's a super cool boat. It's light and it's fast. It's something. It's a mix between a J99 and a Meltis 24. It's
nice.
It's fast.
Yeah.
With a deep draft and a tall mast, and a big cockpit. So it suits 4 or 5 persons plus an instructor. I would say probably 90% of our clients at GoSail have never been on a sailboat before. So we have an instructor on board each boat, and their primary job is to teach people how to communicate, but of course it's also to teach them how to sail. But it's basically it's not the primary job. It is to give them a good experience, and it's the communication bit that they're coming for.
So Soren, when these different companies or groups of from the companies or executives or whoever, there's that dog that you love.
Yeah, it's here. My wife just came in. That's why the dog is barking.
Nice. Welcome. So, when these groups come to you, do you give them kind of the itinerary or the plan, or do they have their own goals, and then, or do you work to customize a program? I'm interested in kind of the actual program and then how adaptable it is. Yeah, fill us in there.
Yeah, no, it depends. Half of our events are for the company's employees, but they're taking the employees out and wanted to have a social day with them. Sometimes they just wanted to have fun, and other times they want to bring out a lot of learning from it. And the other 50% of our events are corporate events where we are taking companies' clients out. So they could be a bank, that invites 50 of their larger clients out because they wanted to bond with their clients. And that's kind of one part of the business, and the other
separate.
is the employee bit. If we're talking about the employees, most of the time I'm having a conversation with whoever buys into the thought, and whoever buys the product about what do they actually want to get out of it. Are they there just for the fun of it, or have they been tested on forehand as far as the personality? Have they been in a big process where they have been firing or hiring people? Do they need to move a bit closer together and get the spirit up again after a difficult Corona time or whatever it could be? So we basically talk things through before they show up, and once they show up on the day, then we're giving them all half an hour briefing as far as what are the different positions on board, what does a race course look like, a little bit about safety, a little bit about the race course and the rules, and how does it all play out. And then once they're done, we get them dressed with sailing gear. We have 150 sets of sailing gear, so there's something that suits everybody. And once they're dressed, we bring them to the boats. They're being met by an instructor, and they are split into teams of 3, 4, 5 persons per boat. And then we take them out and we teach them how to sail. And within half an hour, 45 minutes of schooling, we can have them sail a boat by themselves around a race course. And then we practice the race course and the mark roundings and stuff with them for another 15, 20 minutes. And that actually means that after the clients have been underwater for a good hour, they can handle the boats by themselves, even though that 90% of our clients have never been on a sailboat before.
So do you have a pretty high conversion rate? Do these people ever ask you afterwards? Do they ever say like, hey, how do I become a sailor? Like, how do I get more into this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do I find a Learn to Sail program? How do I get into a yacht club? And yacht clubs in Denmark are not like you have your yacht clubs in the States. Here they are more like a sailing center. They're not posh with high buy-ins. I know. Being a member of the yacht club in Denmark, you'll pay $150 a year, and you're a member. And then you can come and participate in whatever is happening. Of course, you still have to pay for participating in racing or something like that. But it's not a status symbol. It's
right.
They're there because they want to sail.
It's not like a country club, right? It's like a community sailing center, sort of.
Yeah.
So Søren, other than people wanting to get more into sailing, I'm sure you get a lot of feedback from potentially like a lot of smart people or people from various industries outside of sailing. What are some common pieces of feedback that you get? And like, is anything that you hear after someone's experience at GoSail Denmark, does it ever surprise you, their takeaways from the process?
Well, the good thing is that we have never spent a dime on marketing. And the reason why we haven't done that is that it goes from mouth to mouth. So people are coming out, they are touching base with us, and they're having a good experience. And they will tell their network about what we're actually doing. And that's actually the best and the biggest achievement, is that people are walking away from being introduced to sailing for the first time in their life, being underwater with people that are doing it for a living, being underwater for 4 hours, getting back on shore, and they are high. I mean, they're talking really loud to each other. People that have never seen each other before are not just doing high fives, but they're actually hugging, and I mean they're bonding.
Yeah.
And it does something to people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's what we can do. And that's why we have our market share and that people keep coming to us. We're doing, well, not in a Corona year, but in an ordinary year, we'll do somewhere between 150 and 250 of these corporate events.
Wow. That's
We have
so Soren,
120 instructors by the hour.
that's a lot. That's a lot of sailing. You're getting a lot of new people out on the water.
Yeah. That's the primary thing, is to make
Yeah,
people happy and introduce
yeah,
them to sailing.
right on.
Yeah.
Patrick, this is so similar to our Matt Dewar interview. Soren, I'll have to send you the interview we did with this guy, Dr. Matt Dewar, yesterday. You have the same attitude as he does. It's awesome. So Soren, when you get a big group of people in, let's say from a company, and you're tasked with the goal to just build a stronger units as team units, you've got a bunch of people. How do you decide how to break them up into groups as crews for each boat?
Well, sometimes we're just doing it randomly, and we assign them to various boats. But other times there's a master plan behind it, because whoever ordered the event might know that there is person A and B and C that they have a hard time socializing or getting things done at work. We need to put them into a different environment, teach them a lesson, and then they can bring some of that learning back to their ordinary jobs afterwards. So at times there's a higher meaning, and other times it's just being done randomly.
Right. That's interesting. So how do you assign the roles? Do people throughout the week or throughout the program, do they move around to each role of the boat?
No. That
Would
would
be a
make them
lot.
very confused,
Right.
because they only have 1 hour to practice in. And basically the way that we are assigning the jobs is that there'll be one person steering the boat, being the driver, not the skipper, but the
Right.
driver. And then we have the person with the mainsail, being the mainsail trimmer and the tactician, because it's easier for that person to look out of the boat at the same time as adjusting your main sheet. And then we'll have 2 or 3 persons working together adjusting the foresail. We'll never use a spinnaker. It's just either a fork or a genoa that we are using as the foresail. But being able to control the rudder, the mainsail, and the jib is more than enough for people that have never been on a sailboat before. And then the
I'll
instructor
say.
is very back, so the instructor could interfere if they have to.
Right.
But they
So
won't
Soren,
steer the boat.
yeah, that makes sense. It's crazy to me. So in one day, you take people that have never sailed, and then at the end of that same day, they're match racing.
Yeah, no, well, they are match racing if there's only 2 boats for
Right.
the event. But if there's, let's say there's a group of 30 persons, we'll split them into 6 groups or 6 boats. Then we'll just do fleet racing with them.
Right, but within one day, they're still racing around buoys.
Oh yeah. I have to show you some of our video. I mean,
Yeah,
it's really significant what they can do.
that's amazing. So Soren, I'd like to get kind of your final thoughts. I think GoSail Denmark is really cool. When we were hanging out at the restaurant in Italy, you were telling me about it. I've actually got my GoSail PPE here. My GoSail buff.
There you go. Thank you.
It's never come in more handy. I'll tell you. I wear it every day. But I'd like to get your final thoughts. What is it about sailing and keelboat sailing that lends itself to being such a good platform for team building, for what you do, for employee and customer and client experiences? Why is it such a unique platform?
Well, for us, it's because it's a safe environment. We let people do their mistakes. We teach them how to sail, but we also let them do the mistakes, which means that if, for instance, in a race, we have one boat that are pointing their boat in the wrong direction, or that they are going upwind with their sails all the way out, or whatever, the instructor won't say anything. So we let them do their mistakes and let them finish last. But we're running short races, and the races will only take 20 minutes, which means that there's a feedback after each one of the races. And it also proves to our clients that the learning curve is really, really steep, because of course there is a debrief after each race. And the main reason why people are thinking that this is very, very, very beneficial for them is that for the first time, they can compete in a sport or in something where they're all on the same level. Because
It's an
it's
equalizer.
it's such a small percentage of people that have tried it before. So they're all at the same stage. They all be giving the same brief before we head out, and they will all receive the same communication from the instructor while we're teaching them how to sail, and then we test them in a safe environment afterwards when we actually facilitate these races.
So
And that's
you're
really cool.
yeah, you're removing the variables, giving them an even playing field, and then
Yeah.
it really isolates the team building within the boat and the team communication. I get
Yeah,
it.
and you can do it regardless of you being 15 or 75,
Yeah,
or your weight is 100 or it's 300. It doesn't
right.
matter.
Yeah,
And if some of the clients have a I don't know, a bad shoulder or whatever it is, we can find a job for them where they don't get to use that shoulder. Or if we have a person on board that always have a tendency of being seasick whenever we're on a ferry, well, the good thing is that the waters that we're doing our corporate events is kind of like a lake in the Midwest. It's well
flat.
protected. It's
Yeah,
flat. So regardless of how much it blows, there's always flat water.
yeah. Soren,
So
that's so
you know,
awesome. Do you have any shout outs to any of the guys from Team Most? You want to say hi to them real quick before we sign off?
well, there's a lot of good people involved with Team Most, and the good thing is that I still get to see all of them on Facebook, and they're getting married now, and all of them are having kids, and
Yeah, it's
they're all
crazy.
growing up. I wish that we could have a reunion at one point. That
We may
would be
have to
great.
work on that. We may have
Yeah,
to work on that.
I'll
Soren,
come.
thank you so much. Thanks for coming on Sailors in Suits. I hope to see you real soon, whether it's here or over there out on the waters.
Well, thank you very much, and I think it's a great idea. I wish you all the best with this concept. I hope it takes off and it becomes really popular here in Corona times.
Yeah, thanks, Soren. You may help me with that.
I will. I'll push it around here in Denmark for sure.
Nice, cool.